All right, ready for this? We're going deep on time management, like really deep. Using this guide, we're going to unpack how to take control of our day. I mean, who hasn't wished for just a few more hours, right?
Oh, yeah. And we'll be looking at more than just practical tips. We're talking the psychology behind our time struggles.
Mm.
You'll definitely understand your own relationship with time better by the end of this deep dive.
Hugh had me at psychology. This guide starts off talking about this illusion of time thing. And they give this example. Imagine like endlessly scrolling on your phone. Suddenly an hour's gone. Poof.
Totally. The guy calls this time dilation. Basically, how our brains form memories is key here. When we're just passively doing something, like that endless scroll,
Mm.
our brains aren't making distinct memories. So time just kind of dog vanishes. It's like unstructured time, even if it's fun, doesn't always leave us feeling great.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Like, I always think I have so much time in the evenings, but then dot gone. It's all just a blur of whatever was on my phone.
Exactly. And the guy says just recognizing that is huge. Like, that's step one to managing time better. We got to be more aware of how we're actually spending those hours.
Okay, now let's get to my specialty. Procrastination. Seriously, I can turn the simplest thing into a week-long ordeal. But this guide made me see it differently. It's not just being lazy, is it?
Nope, not just laziness. The guide really gets into like the emotional stuff behind procrastination. And it's fascinating. It's saying a lot of it comes from being afraid to fail or that pressure to be perfect
Yeah.
or just hating the task itself. It even gives this example. Imagine someone waiting for the absolute perfect time to start a project, which of course never comes.
That's so me. I'll put off writing something because I'm convinced it'll be bad, or wait for my schedule to be totally clear before tackling something big, which, yeah, never happens. Knowing this stuff helps, though. It's like I'm finally naming the monster under the bed or something.
That's it. Once you get those underlying emotions, you can actually start to like work with them. The guide suggests, for example, breaking big tasks into smaller chunks. That way it's not as overwhelming and it's easier to get started.
Okay, but I'm a master procrastinator, so what? What's the big deal? Besides the last minute stress, of course.
Well, the guide says the consequences are actually pretty serious. We're talking missed deadlines for sure, but also more stress and even burnout. And that stuff can make you feel bad about yourself and overall just not happy with life.
Wow, I hadn't thought about it like that. It's more than just being disorganized, huh?
Right. And get this. The guide mentions Harvard studies. They found a direct link between bad time management and long-term unhappiness. Makes you want to take it seriously, right?
Okay, I'm officially on board with getting my time act together. So, what about the actual frameworks? This guide starts with the Eisenhower Matrix. The name's a little intimidating, but the idea itself is pretty simple, right?
Totally. It boils down to this. What's truly important versus what just feels urgent. It helps you prioritize the right stuff. You know the famous Eisenhower quote, right?
Yeah.
It's one about how important things are rarely urgent, and urgent things are rarely important.
Yeah, I've heard that one, but how do you actually use it? Like in real life?
Okay, so the Eisenhower Matrix, it's like 4 categories for your tasks.
Yeah.
Important and urgent, important but not urgent but not important, and then neither. What you want to do is focus on the important but not urgent stuff, because those are the things that get neglected the most. They matter for the long run, but don't have a deadline screaming at you.
So, like, finally working on that personal project or, actually taking care of myself. Those would be in that category.
Exactly. Those are the things that go out the window when the urgent stuff piles up.
Yeah.
But when we actually plan time for them, life gets way more balanced and fulfilling.
Okay, I can see how that would be useful. How about you? How do you actually use this matrix thing?
I
Always curious to hear how people put these things into practice.
Oh, it's been so helpful for me, especially when I'm deciding what I can hand off to someone else or just drop altogether. I used to think I had to do everything myself, but with the Matrix, I realized, no, some things just aren't worth my time. And now I've got way more space in my schedule for the things that really matter.
That's a great way to use it. I'm definitely guilty of trying to do it all and then feeling totally overwhelmed. Okay, what's next?
Time blocking, right. The guide describes it as basically assigning blocks of time to different activities. But then they mention Elon Musk scheduling his day in 5-minute chunks, and that's a little intense for me.
Yeah, that's definitely on the extreme end of time blocking. But the main idea is all about being intentional. You're basically making a visual plan for your day so you can fit everything in.
So I'm not just letting the day happen to me, I'm actually like planning it out. That feels way less chaotic already. Exactly. The guide is big on finding a level of detail that works for you. You don't have to schedule every minute, even just blocking off time for focused work. errands, even relaxing can make a difference. It's about making a structure that supports what you want to do.
I'm warming up to this time blocking thing, but what if, like, something comes up? Do you have to be super strict about the schedule?
Not at all. The guide says to be flexible. Life happens, right? Sometimes you got to adjust. Time blocking is just a framework, not a straitjacket. You can shift things around as needed.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I was picturing having to reschedule my whole day if anything unexpected popped up, so it's more like a guideline then, not set in stone.
Exactly. It's about having a plan, but being able to roll with the punches.
Okay, I'm on board. I'm ready to give time blocking a try. Now, what about the Pomodoro Technique? I've heard of it, but never actually tried it. It's all about timers and working in focused bursts, right?
Yep. You set a timer for 25 minutes of solid work, then take a 5-minute break. Repeat that 4 times, and then you get a longer break, like 15 or 20 minutes. It's super simple, but the guide says it's actually very effective for getting things done and avoiding burnout. There are even studies showing those breaks help your mind stay fresh and focused.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I try to work for hours straight, I just get distracted and my
Oh.
productivity tanks. It's like my brain needs a little reset.
Exactly. And the guide suggests Pomodoro is really helpful for tasks that need your full attention. Think of it like training your attention span to work better in short bursts.
I like that. 25 minutes seems way less daunting than a whole afternoon of work. Didn't the guide also mention the 2-minute rule?
Oh yeah, that one's all about those little tasks that tend to pile up and clutter your mind. If it takes less than 2 minutes, just do it right then.
I love that. It's like a tiny victory every time you cross one of those off your list, and it keeps them from turning into those big, scary someday projects.
Totally. The guide says clearing that small stuff creates momentum and frees up mental space for more important work. It's surprisingly effective for staying on top of things and feeling less overwhelmed.
2-minute rule, you're going on my list of time management hacks. This is already so helpful.
And we're just getting started. Next up, we're going even deeper into the psychology of time management. Why we struggle, not just how to fix it. That's where things get really interesting.
Okay, psychology of time management. Color me intrigued. This guide's been big on the mental side of things. And one thing that stood out was decision fatigue. It's like all those choices we make throughout the day, they actually drain us
Mhm.
mentally.
Oh yeah, it's real. The guide says we only have so much willpower each day, and every decision, no matter how small, it takes a little bit of that away.
No wonder I feel brain dead by evening. Think about it. What to wear, eat, work on first. It all adds up.
Yep. And as that willpower goes down, the guide says, well, we start making worse choices, like more impulsive ones. And that can totally wreck our productivity. It can even mess with our well-being overall.
You know what? That explains so much. Like, why by the end of the day, my good decisions are gone. Gym, nah. Healthy dinner, order in.
Exactly. That's why the guide's all about routines. When you have a routine for stuff, you're basically automating those choices.
Right.
And that frees up your mental energy for the stuff that actually needs it.
Makes sense. I started meal prepping on Sundays a while back, and it's been amazing. I don't have to think about lunch every day. That's like mental space freed up right there.
Perfect example. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be huge either. The guide suggests just little things like putting your clothes out the night before or getting your workspace set up. That way, you're minimizing decisions first thing in the morning.
I like that. Small tweaks, big impact. Okay, so we've got decision fatigue. What other mind games is this guide talking about?
Well, there's this one, Parkinson's Law. Ever heard of it?
Yeah, but I'm kind of fuzzy on the details. It's that thing about work taking up all the time you give it, right?
That's it. The guide says basically if you give yourself a week to do something that could take 2 days, you'll find a way to fill that whole week, even if it means adding extra stuff or just procrastinating more.
Oh my God, that's Emmy. I'm the queen of stretching a 1-hour task into a whole day. I always thought I was just bad at this stuff, but maybe it's Parkinson's law messing with me.
Happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the guide has some cool ways to beat it. It's all about setting limits. Like one thing they say is to give yourself fake deadlines, even for small stuff.
So instead of, I'll get to that email later, I should say, that email's got to be done by 11 a.m.
Exactly. The guide says when you have a clear deadline, even if you made it up, it creates urgency. And that helps you focus, work faster, no more delays. It's like tricking your brain into thinking there's less time, so you got to get moving.
I am so trying that. No more stretching things out for me. It's all about the urgency, even if it's like self-made urgency, right?
Yep. Another thing the guide recommends, break big tasks into smaller chunks, each with its own little deadline. That way you feel like you're making progress and it's less overwhelming.
Ooh, I like that. It's like mini goals along the way. Much better than staring down a giant project with no end in sight.
Right. Breaking things down also helps with procrastination, because a lot of times we put stuff off when we're feeling overwhelmed. But if it's smaller chunks, you're less likely to get stuck and more likely to stay focused.
Okay, Parkinson's Law, you've been officially outsmarted. Now, on to something more fun, flow state. The guide talks about this, like being in the zone, so absorbed in something that you lose track of time.
It's like everything else fades away and you're totally in the moment. The guide says flow doesn't just happen randomly, you can actually create the conditions for it.
That's cool. I thought it was just like a spontaneous thing, but you're saying we can actually make flow happen more often.
Exactly. And they talk about the research of this guy, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, like he's the flow expert.
Hmm.
And he says there are three key things: clear goals, immediate feedback, and a balance of challenge and skill.
So it's not just about doing something you enjoy, it's got to challenge you just the right amount. Like you have the skills, but it still pushes you.
Exactly. The guide uses this example of, like, a musician playing an instrument. Too easy, they get bored. Too hard, it's frustrating.
Mm.
But that sweet spot where it's challenging but you can still do it, that's where the flow happens.
I totally get that. And the guide says we should figure out what things trigger that flow state for us. Could be writing, painting, anything really. And then make time for those things.
Yes. It's about making sure our time aligns with the stuff that brings us joy. You know, the stuff that challenges us in a good way.
And the guide's big on this point. Flow isn't just about getting stuff done. It's about having a more meaningful, satisfying life. You know what? That might be the biggest takeaway from this whole deep dive. Time management, it's not just about checking things off a list. It's about making a life that actually reflects what we care about, spending time on the things that matter.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And to help with that, the guide has a ton of practical advice. We're talking tools, techniques, all that good stuff, both digital and analog, actually. I want to explore those a bit.
Okay, let's talk tools and techniques. I'm all about finding those things that help you stay organized and on top of, well, everything. This guide mentions a bunch, both digital and analog. Where do we even start?
You know, the guide makes a good point about this. There's no magic bullet, no one tool that works for everyone. It really depends on you, what clicks for you. But it does go through some popular options, starting with the digital stuff. Todoist, Trello, Notion.
Yeah.
All those get mentioned as great for managing tasks and projects.
Oh, yeah, those are classics for a reason. I've tried all of them at some point.
Yeah.
I think it depends on, like, how visual you are. Some are more list-based, others are more, visual boards and stuff.
That's a good point. And the guide's big on trying things out. Experiment, figure out what fits your way of working, even your personality, and even talks about tools specifically for tracking your time, like rescue time. It basically spies on you in a good way. Tells you how you're really spending your time on your computer and phone.
Rescue time, I've heard of that. It's a little big brothery, but I can see how it would be useful. Like, you find out how much time you're actually wasting on, say, social media without even realizing it.
Exactly. And the guide says that's often the first step to changing things. Awareness, right? Once you see where your time is going, you can start making different choices.
But what about people who aren't, like, super techie, or they just prefer pen and paper? This guide doesn't forget about them, right?
Nope. It actually gives a lot of attention to those analog tools too. Bullet journals, planners, all that. The guide even says the act of physically writing things down can be really powerful. Like, it helps you remember things better and it makes you more committed to your goals.
I think there's something to that. I love my digital calendar for, like, appointments and reminders, but I also have a physical journal, for brainstorming and notes and stuff. There's just something about writing it down that makes it feel more real, more, I don't know, intentional.
The guide is all about finding that balance, what works for you. It even says you can mix and match digital and analog to create a system that really fits your needs.
So no matter which tools you end up using, the important thing is consistency, right? Like actually using them regularly to build good habits.
Exactly. And the guide talks a lot about that habit building piece, especially starting the day off right with a morning routine.
Ah, morning routines. I hear so much about them, but I'm terrible at sticking to them.
Yeah.
Any tips from the guide on making them actually work?
It says the biggest thing is to start small. Don't try to change everything overnight, right?
Yeah.
Pick one or two tiny habits you can actually do every day. It could be as simple as, I don't know, drinking a glass of water when you wake up.
Yeah.
Or doing a couple of stretches.
That's a good idea. It's way less intimidating than trying to do a whole hour-long routine from day one.
Right. And the guide says once those little habits become easy, then you add something else, maybe a quick workout or a few minutes of journaling. It's about building it up slowly over time.
And it also mentions finding an accountability partner, right? Like someone to keep you on track with your time management goals.
Yep. The guide says it helps a lot to have someone to talk to about your goals, someone who can check in with you. It could be a friend, family, even someone you work with. The main thing is they get what you're trying to do and they're supportive.
I totally agree with that. I found it so helpful in other areas of my life, like working out or writing. Having someone to share that journey with makes a huge difference. It's like having your own personal cheerleader.
Exactly. And don't forget the guide's emphasis on reflection. Take a little time each week, maybe 15, 20 minutes, to think about how it's going. Celebrate what's working, figure out what needs tweaking.
That's such good advice. It's easy to just get caught up in the day to day and forget to look at the bigger picture. Reflection helps with that, right? It helps you adjust and keep moving forward.
Definitely. And I think this guy does a great job of reminding us time management, it's not about being perfect. It's not about some magical level of productivity. It's about being mindful, choosing how we spend our time, making sure it aligns with our values, and ultimately creating a life that feels good, fulfilling, you know?
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of what time management really means. It's not just about tasks and to-do lists. It's about, like you said, living a life that's meaningful.
I'm so glad to hear that. And before we go, the guide inspired us to leave you with this question. If you could design your perfect day, how would you spend it? What would bring you joy? What would make you feel accomplished and fulfilled? Think about that, because your time, it's precious. Make it count.
That's such a great question. Really makes you think. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into time management. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep making the most of your time.